Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good, mate. How are you?
Very well, very well. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Blues and Shoeys. Home edition, sober edition. So, if we're not babbling rubbish, slurring our words and arguing, it's because it's a sober edition.
We're trying to keep down the straight and narrow, so there'll be plenty of shoeys due in coming episodes. But
we only do our shoey bets when we're together on
Yeah.
the piss.
and one thing we need to do is obviously the same old story: like and subscribe to all our fans out there, all three of them. Spread the word,
It's
people.
growing now. I believe it's 3.5.
3.5 fans, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what YouTube and the other platforms count. Maybe we've nabbed a sort of under 15-year-old fan who's loves our sports chat. But
Yeah,
anyway,
it's my son. He's 4.
yeah.
And yeah.
Right, what we'll do this week is we're looking back on the Premier League and almost as per Professor Perucci here, as I'm dressed, Professor Pooch, we are giving a bit of a scorecard and a school report to the teams.
You look like someone in Slytherin. That's what you look like.
Yeah, a bit rough
Someone
around the
hasn't paid
collar.
attention.
Yeah, exactly. Smart professor, but obviously has a drinking problem. So what we'll do is with each team, just for anyone listening on audio, we're ranking teams, the performances last year, and the categories are style of football, how new signings from the previous season integrated, have they progressed from the previous season,
Yep.
the worst result, their best result of the season, a notable moment, that could be on the pitch, off the pitch, anything along those lines, trophies won, and then an overall rating. And then what we'll do is we'll discuss maybe 3 or 4 key areas that those teams are likely going to recruit, or what we think anyway that they need. There's obviously a lot of transfer rumours happening already. So most will be across some of those key rumours with the window only opening in July, mate. So it seems like another week before anyone can sign anyone. So United have got an excuse to mess around for another week.
Obviously, they're already doing it, aren't they? McAllister's gone to Liverpool already.
Yeah. Things
like that. Milner's gone to Brighton. Bellingham went to Real Madrid. So there's obviously they're already starting. Teams like Man City, Inter, things like that were playing literally last week, and then obviously a lot of those internationals they'll probably want a bit of time off before they have to deal with all this stuff. But but what we'll do is we'll just run through who we think some of these teams could do with, not necessarily they're linked with at the moment, or just maybe we're taking, for example, you're going to lose McAllister, you need to replace him, who'd be a good fit, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So what we'll do, mate, is we'll do City first. This should be relatively boring, just considering the success of last season. So it's, the scores are going to be relatively easy. But
you're quite biased, so we'll see if you're going to be fair.
Well, do you want to kick off?
I'll kick off with Man City.
Do your report first, and we'll see what you come up with.
So, I mean, obviously, Man City. I'll start with the grade, right? Just right away.
Yeah.
It's an A plus, right? They were already champions. We're already the best team in the world, probably, but they hadn't won the Champions League. That was obviously the number one aim this year. And I think, honestly, they've won the treble. They've ended up with the treble, and fair play to them, they deserved it. But I think halfway through the season, when Arsenal were doing so well, they probably would have sacrificed the league to win the If you could have promised them the Champions League in December, I think they would have quite happily said, right, we'll take that and we'll let Arsenal have the league this year. But the way things panned out, and they were just a juggernaut the second half of the season, all their good players came to fruition. Whenever they needed anyone, they stepped up. They were solid at the back, and they had goals in them every game. So very much an A plus for me. In terms
Style of football, mate, and going through those pieces.
Style of football, I would say, actually deteriorated at the first half of the season. It wasn't as good as they played in previous years, as they tried to obviously find that way to fit Erling Haaland into the team. He was scoring goals right from day dot, but you could tell with some of the games, and it cost them some points, to be fair, but you could tell that it was new to them, this laying it on a plate for the one guy type of thing. A lot of guys like Foden, Mahrez, Bernardo Silva are used to scoring those chances rather than...
It was literally De Bruyne was the only one that was seeing the pass, right? Because it's unusual for them to play the early ball.
A lot of them have goals in them, and they've probably got that greedy streak, and it took probably about half a season for them to realise this is what Pep wants us to do. And I think Foden actually suffered this year and probably didn't get as many starts as he should have for such a good player, because he was scoring. I mean, he got a hat trick against Man United. He could have laid two of them onto Haaland. Haaland got a hat trick himself, but I think Pep sets out the stall on how he wants to play. He wants you to follow that to the nth degree. And like I said, I think Foden probably found a bit more time on the bench this year because it took him a while to do that.
Also, it took a while for Haaland to mix in with City and City to mix in with Haaland. Because obviously, not having a striker last season, they've done the long build up, breaking teams down systematically rather than maybe giving that early pass, which they could do more of still, I think.
Yeah, I think next year they'll be better than they were this year, and that's what's scary because they won the treble this year. But yeah, obviously the adjustment with Cancelo was such a big player for them. They took him out halfway through the season, and they got better, which was mad because I thought he was the best fullback in the world. But again, they looked to improve once he left the team. But yeah, like I said, style of play, I'd say probably certainly B plus or A. Just we've seen them play better over the years. But again, who cares if you're winning the major trophies? So I don't think Pep will actually care about that.
And if we go through new signings, mate, what do you think? I mean, I've got Haaland, Alvarez, Phillips, Ortega, and Akanji has been their sort of main signings. Obviously, Ortega being a reserve keeper.
They got Sergio Gomez at the start of the season. He started off. He's a fullback. He started off getting a couple of games as a sub. Kind of faded away. But yeah, again for signings, you've got to give them an A. They sold well. I mean, everyone thought it was a bit of a mistake selling Jesus and Zinchenko to competitors in the league.
Yeah.
But they got a lot of money, and they got a lot of money for Sterling, who's proven he's probably best days are behind him. Certainly didn't have a great season at Chelsea, and they got 50 million for him. So they recouped a hell of a lot of money for big name players, and they brought in better players, or they brought in players that made them better.
I think it's only really Phillips that's been well below par basically, and I don't know if there's a bit of injuries, but
Phillips has struggled for injuries, and he's not as good as Rodri. So it's simple as that. He's not going to play as many games unless they want to play two defensive mids and De Bruyne. It's not, which I don't think works.
With Stones going into more of that midfield role when they're in possession, that means even less need for Phillips.
So I think Calvin Phillips was bought as probably as cover or a kind of replacement for Fernandinho, just because you never know what's going to happen with Rodri or whatever. But Rodri in his day is the best in that position in the world. So,
but sometimes we see this with Pep, right, where we've got Foden's fallen off the bandwagon. You could say this year, Silva's had his ups and downs at City, albeit a great player. Mm-hmm. Stones previously started off great, then had one or two difficult years. Now he's come to the fore. Laporte, brilliant last year, non-existent this year. So sometimes you just you can't. You're not often a guarantee with Pep, are you?
Like I say, he's a fantasy football manager's nightmare because he just
100%.
rotates it so often. He doesn't have any favourites. Even tail end of the season this year, De Bruyne and Haaland found a lot of time on the bench once the league was won. He likes to chop and change. He likes to keep everyone as fresh as possible. But like I said, for signings, it's an A plus for me because Haaland has won them the treble. He's a goal machine, and now that they're finding ways to he's finding better ways to link up and get an assist, and they're finding better ways to find him. I think that bodes well. And the boy Akanji, maybe even the signing of the year.
I mean, they got him for nothing.
15 million, which is peanuts when you think.
How does nobody else see that?
He's a starter for Manchester City, who are the best team in the world.
He's a big lump. He's fast. He's good with the ball. Jesus.
So he's up there as value signing of the season, and we'll get around to who's actually signing of the season. But he'd be right up there, including Haaland. So the fact that they managed to get two players who slotted so effortlessly into the starting 11 and look absolute mainstays, which is hard to do when you've got such a great squad anyway. I think they've signed really well, so you've got to give them a plus on that. And
what are you saying about worst result and best results of the season?
Well, I mean, Man City's best result is obviously winning the Champions League final. They actually didn't play really well, to be honest, but I mean that's got to be their best result. But I mean,
but if we're focusing purely on the Prem,
purely on the Prem, putting 6 past Man United, that was a great game as well. I mean,
so clinical.
Just unbelievable. The first half was just ridiculous. It could have been 10-0. Like it was amazing that actually Man United had the kind of heart to keep trying and get a couple of goals at the end just to not make it.
I dare say City took their foot off the gas and.
I mean the result.
Anthony scored a screamer.
Yeah, the result was never in doubt. But what I'm saying is it was on another day that's 7-0 and you just look embarrassed. But at least Man U had a bit of fight in them to not make it as embarrassing. But I think both games they beat Arsenal, they dominated from start to finish, and Arsenal, I thought, were the second best team in the league this year. They proved that when they needed to win the big games to win the league, that they could win them. So either the Arsenal games or the Man United game. The worst game of the season, it's hard because they won the league and then they stopped trying, like, because I mean they lost.
Yeah, they had a few losses. I mean, I think we looked at the stats that they didn't actually have as an incredible season away from home. They actually was probably just mildly better than United.
Man United were lambasted for their results away to the top 9.
Yeah.
And it looked like City's were almost the exact same, with the only difference being that they beat Arsenal. But yeah, again, that just shows you the Prem's tough, right?
Yeah.
The top 10 are a big difference from the bottom 10, and any win away from those teams is a good win. But they lost at Old Trafford, so I guess that's
mine. I mean, it's purely because it's to,
well,
but
you,
also
I mean, you
purely to a rival. It was a dodgy. It was a slightly dodgy goal. The other one is
to your competitors. So I would say that was the worst, and then let's just say the best was beating them as well. So those two games.
And obviously we know they got 3 trophies. So can you?
They missed out
can
the
you
big
put your
one,
finger?
though, didn't they? They never got the Carabao Cup. Man
Exactly,
United
exactly. Give it the big one, mate. Yeah, fucking straight back at you, you bastards. What about your notable moment, mate? Can you think about what you think might be the big moment of the season? Out, obviously, again in the Prem.
I think so. Very first game of the season, West Ham Man City. Haaland scored.
Are you kidding me, mate? I've got exactly that.
Oh,
He looked.
The same? Just knew from that moment he was the real deal, and they were going to be a real
mate, great minds think alike, mate. I was just thinking, I wonder what, and then I just remember that first game we got. The first goal was a pen, and then the second one is he got slid in, and you're like,
and you just go.
Or you're going as a rival fan, you're going, shit.
It's away to West Ham. It's a tough, tricky. They're not a bad team. And
you're just hoping he's got a little bit too much hype, despite knowing that he's basically a guaranteed success.
But I mean, everyone that there was the will they won't they that lasted about 2 games. Is Nunez going to score more goals than Haaland? You know what I mean? That was over.
I was hoping Paddy the Baddie, the Scouts machine, was going to be right for a change.
That was over within about 2 weeks, that discussion. But
yeah, exactly.
I would say the kind of wow moment was just that first game when he just looked so clinical, and he actually probably went backwards after that for a couple of weeks where it was a bit more jittery but he was still scoring. But like I said, that moment for me, I was like, the second goal, I was just like, wow, he's going to score millions in this league. That was it for me for City.
Yeah, well, I'll go through mine pretty quickly. Style of football, very similar to what you were saying before. In their free-flowing best, and when they score a goal, it's brilliant. City, I tend to find it a little bit tedious at times. Also, when they've got 80-90% possession, and it's like build up, hold the ball, especially when teams are sitting deep. So it's a combination of them being so dominant, teams sitting back. It can get a little bit, they call it tiki-taka, but when you're passing 15 passes, a metre next to each other, it gets a little bit sort of tedious for me. That's my point of view. Mm-hmm. New signings integrated as we said, Haaland, Alvarez. I mean, Alvarez, as a backup is as good as you get in terms of strikers.
World Cup winning, treble winner in his first season. I think his stats is, I think
he's 21.
What a year! He's won every trophy. He's won every trophy he's ever been
all
involved
in one season. Jesus.
But yeah, even in Argentina before he came, he won everything. So he is. He's even if he's not going to get a game, he's just a lucky mascot.
Yeah, and Ortega looked handy in the FA Cup final. Kanji, as we said, is probably up there with the valued signing of the year. Have they progressed from last year? I guess certainly on the basis that they've won trophies.
They won the big one, the Champions League. So.
Yeah, and so when you're so dominant, I guess it's difficult to to say you progressed as such.
You're dealing with kind of 98% or 100%. You know what I mean? Like they're brilliant every year, and realistically, they should have 3 Champions Leagues. They should have beat Chelsea, and they should have been the favourite. I mean, they were through against Real Madrid.
They could have possibly, and they should have probably lost against Inter.
Well, it actually played really well. I think
played Gray and
that was the nerves. But I mean, if City had stayed switched on against Real Madrid last year, then they win that. If Pep doesn't try and do something stupid with the tactics against Chelsea, they win that, and then they're going for 3 in a row. So it is small margins when you think about the trophies you win when you're at that level. And Liverpool's the same. Over the last 3 or 4 seasons, they could have won a lot more trophies than they did. But yeah, when you're picking it, you're nitpicking when you say, oh, the style of football is not quite as good. But it is true that they probably have played better football over the last couple of years than they did this season.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so my notable moment, the other sort of one for me was certainly off field, was just a minor issue of 115 financial complaints, however you want to frame it. So something maybe that's not off the pitch football wise. I definitely thought of Haaland in that first game.
I think it's definitely a cloud, and
there's going to be an asterisk against everything at the moment. I mean, unfortunately, because of how strong they are financially, they're richer than the Premier League itself. So they could drag this on through the legal process for years and years, and you end up just.
I suggested that Arsenal should have got a title parade, got to celebrate it on the last day of the season, lift the trophy, and have the bus tour and everything, just in case.
Just in case,
they came second.
Yeah.
And I think every team that comes second to Man City should get to just do a little mock celebration in case it all does come tumbling down with a pack of cards, because nothing would be worse than if they do. Well, not nothing would be worse. You'd still be happy to win it, but there's nothing worse than getting given it retrospectively years later. You know what I mean? I do hope if they are guilty, I hope they nail it quickly, and it's not another couple of years of this winning.
Yeah, for me, I just can't see how they're not guilty. And this is not from recent years. This is more from the Mancini, Pellegrini years. Where they were obviously inflating sponsorship deals and the like
to attract the players. They don't.
Yeah, exactly. They obviously skipped 5-10 years ahead in terms of what they realistically should have been aiming towards. Yeah. So I think they'll always have an asterisk against their name. Is that going to affect Pep later down the line? Potentially, I bet in his heart of hearts he knows that they've done it.
Yeah, but
he's clean. He's out of it. He's done anything. Like I said, it's more from previous managers. Yeah. It's not the manager's fault either. It's the club itself. Yeah. So,
but like I said, you're probably right that they've got enough money to fight it anyway. But like I said, I was glad Arsenal did sneak into second just in the off chance.
Well, yeah. So, I'll give them an A+ with a cheeky asterisk just in case. So if we've both given them A+, mate, let's go to their needs. I'll ring through a couple. It's obviously, if you look at it as a team and as a squad, you dare say it's hard to improve, or that there's no real red flags. But they have obviously, I think, literally today, within the last 24 hours, sold Gundogan or he's gone to Barca, but they're getting rid of Cancelo.
And they've signed Kovacic from Chelsea. So.
Of course, yeah. So there's your direct replacement, I guess. Cancelo, Are they going to replace him?
I mean, I think they've proven they don't need to. But Pep loves to have a deep squad, so I'm
options,
sure he'll have a full-back in.
Because Rico Lewis seemed to get a few games earlier on, and then he sort of tailed off, in the run-in. So I can imagine they're maybe just not quite sure on whether he's got the experience and whether they try and bring in someone. But
the thing is, Walker had his best season in a Man City shirt, so the full-back area they are pretty strong. He's getting older, but they don't need someone there, but they probably will buy someone there.
Yeah, and there's also word on him because he's only got a year left. There was the word about the fact that he couldn't play the role that Stones was playing in terms of going into midfield.
Yeah.
And so he actually was left shy, and he didn't play the Champions League. He didn't start anywhere in the Champions League final. So murmurings of him being unhappy. And also Bernardo Silva and Calvin Phillips are probably the only other ones that I can see them maybe
go. I think that experiment hasn't worked out, and I think if they can get some money back for him to another Prem club, I think they'll take that for Calvin Phillips. But Pep likes to mix it up. Pep doesn't mind losing a couple of key players and bringing in some of the players with energy to keep that drive, because what he's big on, like, if you have the same squad for 5 years, you ain't winning the 5 leagues. That's kind of his motto. You've got to kind of bring in thirsty, hungry players.
Got to keep it fresh, haven't you?
And that was the thing with Haaland. Haaland hadn't won a trophy, and it was the reason he was interested in Kane the year before as well. Not just because of quality players, but that hunger to win trophies. It's infectious when you bring in a star guy who really wants to win. It kind of keeps everyone on their toes. So don't be surprised if they're in for some big players. But again, it's going to take a hell of a transfer window for everyone else to get even close.
Yeah. Well, that's it for City, and we'll go on to the next one.
Let's go.